Chapter 1. Robinson's Early Adventures. Robinson, if you go to the sea, your life will be one of misery, said Mr. Crusoe, and you will live to regret it. But 18-year-old Robinson Crusoe was not moved by his father's words or by the old man's tears. The only thing he wanted in life was to go to sea to make his fortune. He didn't want to study law as his father had hoped. He didn't want to share in his family's successful business as his mother had hoped. Just one voyage, argued Robinson, and if I do not like it, I shall return and stay here with the family in Yorkshire. But Mr. and Mrs. Crusoe would not give their consent. A sailor's life was a dangerous one. Storms were regular occurrences at sea. The winds often blew ships off course and, even worse, dashed them into pieces against rocks or sandbars. Many lives were lost this way. Then, too, there was the danger of pirates who attacked merchant ships, stole their cargo, and killed their crew. No, Mr. and Mrs. Crusoe decided. They could not give the consent and be part of the destruction of the sun. So, for another year, Robinson could only dream of going to the sea. One day, he was visiting a friend in the seaport of town Hull. Robinson learned that the boy's father, a sea captain, was setting sail on a short voyage down the English coast to London. An invitation to come on board and sail as the captain's guest was too much for Robinson to resist. So, on the 1st of September, in the year 1651, Robinson Crusoe began the first of many adventures which would take him to Africa, to South America, and to an island in the Caribbean Sea before he ever returned to English soil again. On his first voyage, Robinson learned what it was like to be violently seasick when his ship was caught in a storm. He learned how fierce and destructive a storm at sea could be, and how he felt being at the mercy of ragging waves and driving winds. But all the fear and seasickness were soon forgotten once Robinson was rescued and returned to dry land. Soon after that, he set sail on his second voyage, this time to the coast of Africa. He learned how to become a successful trader with the natives. He learned the terror of being attacked and captured by a band of pirates. He learned the misery of life as a slave to the pirate captain and the joy of escaping in the captain's small fishing boat. When Robinson was finally rescued from the sea, it was by a Portuguese merchant ship heading to the South American country of Brazil. In Brazil, Robinson went to work on a sugar plantation, and after several years, he bought a plantation of his own. He ran his plantation successfully for several years and made many friends among the other planters. When the planters realized that they needed extra help to run their plantations, they asked Robinson if he could make a voyage to Africa to buy slaves for them. The African natives made very good, loyal workers. Besides, Robinson had been to Africa before and knew how to trade with the natives. Yet he had a very successful plantation built up over the years. To leave it now and go on such a dangerous voyage across the Atlantic Ocean might seem foolish or mad. But the idea of another sea voyage excited Robinson so that he agreed to go. The other planters promised to take care of Robinson's plantation while he was gone, and also to follow the instruction in his will if he did not return. So, on the 1st of September in the year 1659, 8 years to the day he boarded his ship at Hull, England, Robinson Crusoe set sail from San Salvador, Brazil. This voyage was to become the greatest adventure of his or any man's lifetime. Chapter 2. Shipwreck. The ship sailing out of San Salvador that sunny September morning carried 14 men aboard, its captain, 12 sailors, and Robinson Crusoe. As cargo, she carried toys which Robinson planned to use in his trade with the natives. These toys included beads, shells, knives, scissors, hatchets, and small mirrors. The captain set the ship's course to the north along the Brazilian coast. Then he planned to head east across the Atlantic Ocean to reach their destination in Africa. On the 12th day at sea, as they were nearing the northern tip of South America, a violent hurricane struck. For 10 straight days, the fury of the winds pushed the ship in every direction. 2 men were washed overboard, and 1 died to a tropical fever. From moment to moment, Robinson expected to be swallowed up by the sea. Sails were ripped, masts were broken, and the ship was leaking in several places. By the 11th day, when the winds had died down, Robinson and the captain examined the damage. They agreed that the ship was in no condition to continue on to Africa. The captain wanted to return to Brazil, but Robinson disagreed. They were so far north already, it would be closer to head for one of the British islands in the Caribbean Sea. The island of Barbados was only a 15-day sail. They could repair the ship there. But a second storm hit and pulled them off course again. The strong currents were pulling them east towards land inhabited by uncivilized savages. The ship was battered but about by the winds and the sea all night long. At dawn, Robinson was awakened in his cabin by the cries of "Land! Land!" He ran up on deck to see where the lookout was pointing. But at that moment the ship gave a lurch as it struck a sandbar and stopped dead. The sea continued to batter the crippled ship with all its force. As the wind increased, Robinson wondered how much more punishment his ship could take before she broke apart. There was nothing left now but to abandon ship, so the captain gave the orders. The crew immediately began lowering the one lifeboat they carried, and everyone piled in. The winds had calmed down a little, but the sea was rising higher and higher. The lifeboat had no sail, so the men rowed with all their might, but they were at the mercy of the wild sea. Suddenly a raging wave, over 30 feet high, came at them from the stern. There wasn't a moment for the 11 men to even take a breath before the wave overturned the boat and swallowed them all up. Although Robinson was a good swimmer, he couldn't fight the force of the mighty wave. He sank below the surface and let the wave carry his nearly lifeless body wherever it chose. It drove him towards the shore and left him partway there, half dead, with the water he had swallowed. He tried to touch bottom with his feet before the next wave came, but before he could manage it, he found himself buried again in 30 feet of water and carried swiftly towards the shore. This time at least Robinson was able to hold his breath. But just as he felt his lungs ready to burst, his head and hands shot above the surface of the water. As the pull of the sea tried to drag him back out again, Robinson dug his feet into the sand. But the sea was not done with him yet. Twice more he was lifted up by the waves and carried in. The last wave dashed him against a large rock with such force that the air was nearly crushed out of his body. With a last burst of strength, Robinson got to his feet and ran to the shore. There, out of reach of the brutal waves, he collapsed on the sand. After he had vomited out the salt water from his stomach, he lay there gasping for air, trying to catch his breath. As his strength gradually returned, Robinson said a prayer of thanks to God and for saving his life. Every single one of his crewmates had drowned, but his life had been spared. He sat up and looked out to his stranded ship. It was so far out he began to wonder how he had ever made it to shore. When he felt strong enough to stand up and look around him, Robinson's joy immediately turned to sadness. He was alone here. But where was he? He had nothing to eat or drink. Would he die of hunger, or would he be attacked and eaten by some wild beasts? He had no weapons with which to hunt or defend himself other than a small knife in his belt. These fears hit him so suddenly that he began running over the shore like a madman, beating his chest and screaming to God, "Why have you saved me only to make me suffer in this misery?" When he had no more strength to run or scream, Robinson sat down on the sand and tried to clear his thoughts. Night was coming on, but before the light was gone completely, he had to find some fresh water to drink. So he walked a little ways inland and found a small little stream with cool fresh water. Next, he had to find a place for himself for the night, a place where he would be protected from an attack by wild beasts. He found a large, thick fir-like tree and climbed up into it. As he tried to make himself comfortable on two strong branches, his mind was filled with thoughts of what kind of death he would die the next day. But in spite of these thoughts, Robinson was so exhausted that he soon fell asleep.